Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and we have another great show for you today. Let me ask you a question. Do you know your purpose? Uh-huh. Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah, like some of you are raising your hands out there, Well, put your hand back on your steering wheel because I know you're listening to this on a podcast. So put that back on there. All right. All right. So I see some of you may. Okay, that's good. How many of you feel like you truly live authentically to who you are and were created to be? Just raise your hands. Like you people driving down the road, you don't have to. Just nod. Okay, I see you. Good. All right. So the majority of us seem to struggle with this idea of what's our purpose. What is authenticity? I mean, we throw these terms around a lot, by the way. I mean, in psychology, we throw them around, and in coaching, we throw them around. We throw this term purpose and authenticity, right? And often what happens is when we throw these terms of purpose and authenticity, we confuse it with why. And I'm not coming down on Simon Sinek because he's absolutely right. Your why is important. But your why can change, but your purpose is going to stay stable throughout your entire life. Mm-hmm. See, why I may do something is going to change, but the purpose, that's something that's in you, as part of you. That's the way you were made. That's the way that it just comes out of you. Okay. And by the way, there's no way to live your purpose if you aren't living authentically who you are. My guest this week is Randy Atkins Jr. His book is Produce on Purpose, Experience Life Being the Real You. And we're going to talk to him today. But before we get to him, because it's good, we're going to get into this conversation of purpose and authenticity. Before we get to him, though, let's do what we do every week, right? We're 4-part people. We're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual people. Fact of the matter is, we've had all these special operation forces, Delta Force on here and generals and Navy SEALs on here, and they've all said the same thing. You know what? And you've got to be growing in all 4 of these areas every day, because if you're not growing, you're dying, because we never stay the same. And so what we do is we have you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in each of these areas. So like, for instance, let's take the physical area. Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being 10 being I can't get any better, 5 being average. How would you rate yourself in terms of eating right, getting enough exercise, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, right? Just those 4 things. How would you rate yourself? Scale of 1 to 10. By the way, don't worry about the number. If the number's a low number, right, that doesn't mean you're bad. It just means that's a starting point of where we got to pick it up from. All right. So if you're a 2, let's get to a 2.5, right? How do you do that? Well, maybe it's adding a little water, getting to bed a little earlier. Get your hand out of the bag of chips would be a good idea, right? Whatever it takes for you, right? Take a walk, right? Okay, so right, don't judge yourself like that. Let's just move up a little step at a time. All right. So we're not trying to get from a 2 to 10. Let's get a 2.5. All right. That's your first number. Second number is the mental intellectual number, right? Here's the thing. You want to be growing in knowledge and understanding of yourself and the world around you, right? And what better way to do that than to read a book? It's a great way to increase your knowledge and understanding. I know a lot of you like listening to books. Great. But here's what I tell my coaching clients. Write 2 or 3 things down that you picked up from what you heard, and then implement them. Because knowledge without action isn't anything. That's not growth, right? So we want to improve our intellectual growth. What are we doing to improve grow in our knowledge of our work? How about getting better at what you do at your work? How about getting better in your relationships? How about getting better in your marriage? How about getting you better? How about learning something new, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say you're doing in intellectual mental growth? All right, third number is the emotional part. Well, look, here's the deal. There's a lot to be said about emotions. We break it down really simple on this show, right? There's 2 sides to your emotional self. First is, how well are you able to control your emotions while under stress and pressure? Ever been hangry? When you're hungry and angry? How are you able to control that? That's the first part. Second part is, how well are you able to tap into and understand the emotions of another person? You want people to respond to you? You need to know what emotions they're going through, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say you're doing emotionally? And then finally, there's the spiritual area, right? And I know there's a bunch of you out there go, oh, Jan, that's not spiritual. I'm not a spiritual person. Okay, I don't believe in all that spiritual stuff. Well, you are spiritual, because if you remove the physical, mental, and the emotional, you're left with the spiritual. And you go, well, no, I'm really not. No, okay, listen. First of all, here's the deal: we all live by faith, right? You drank your cup of coffee this morning and it wasn't poisonous, was it? Because you believed it wasn't poisonous. But you pushed your button on your car, or turned the key on your car, believing the car was going to start, didn't you? It's faith. When the sign said walk, you believed by faith that no car was going to hit you as you walked across the street, did you? No, you didn't, right? Have you made plans for the future that haven't happened yet? Yeah, that's faith, because you believe they're going to happen. But we also connect to each other more than just physically, mentally, and emotionally. There's something that goes beyond that, and that's the spiritual part. So how is your spiritual life? And let me ask you this: what brings you back to centeredness in the midst of world's chaos? Is it God? Is it nature? Is it meditation? Is it something else? And the question is, how's it working for you? And what do you need to do to change it? Those 4 areas are like the air in the tire of your car. See, if one of the tires is low, you know what happens? It's really hard to drive the car, because it veers all over the place. If all 4 tires are low, you know what happens? You're going to ruin the car. It's just not going to run, and it's not going to run well. And speaking of someone who's got all his tires up to the right level, his name is Randy Atkins Jr. He is a low country native of South Carolina, creatively weaving his experiences as a corporate consultant, ordained minister, community leader, and distinguished Toastmaster into a tapestry, inspiring observers to integrate spiritual growth principles into everyday life. Randy has a passion to create lasting change in lives through writing, teaching, and speaking. He's an altruistic leader, organizational visionary, captivating speaker, and respected advisor with a mission that is to inspire individuals to be leaders, change agents, and go-getters. And ladies and gentlemen, he joins us here today. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to a show for the first time, Randy Atkins Jr. to a new direction. Welcome, Randy.
Hey, Jay, how are you? It's so exciting to be on your show. I'm ready to be able to share some great information about how we can produce on purpose.
Well, first of all, listen to that voice. I mean, that's some golden tones right there, man. You need your own show. I mean, that's some, man, he comes out there, hello, Jay. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Man, I'm not sure whose show I'm on, if I'm on my show or your show.
Great.
No, you do. You have great tones. So produce on purpose. I'm going to get started in the introduction. Excuse me. You come right out of the gate and you say there's a purpose for everything in this world. I could not agree more. I think there is. But then the second thing that you say is you have a purpose. I have run across this question, and I would like to hear your answer, because I hear all the time, I'm not sure I have a purpose, or, from people where they'll say, I'm not sure I have a purpose, or I don't know what my purpose is. When you hear somebody says, I don't think I have a purpose, how do you respond to that?
I respond by saying we all do have a purpose. Sometimes it has been elusive that we have not found what that purpose is. And sometimes we just have to take a step back. And I'm glad you shared all of the different parts of who we are, to be able to find out who we are, what we're here to do, why were we created. And I really think that if we focus on the reason we were created, and one of the things I always think about is when I go to my kitchen, I have a dishwasher in my kitchen. The dishwasher has a purpose. The purpose is to wash dishes. However, if I take my iPad and I put it in my dishwasher, it's not fulfilling its purpose. And sometimes we are taking and being a dishwasher with an iPad in it, and we're just not fulfilling our purpose. But that doesn't mean you don't have a purpose. And so I encourage everyone to begin to search for that and begin to look for that. And when we do that, that's when we start to find out that, wait a minute. there's something that I have on the inside of me, and I describe in the book two different ways to think about purpose. One is a general purpose where you have a general purpose to focus in on your creator and whoever you call that. I call mine God. And if I focus on that and I say my expression is to fulfill or be able to make sure my creator is happy with what I'm doing. And that it's just like a manufacturer of that dishwasher. I want to make sure that I'm doing what I was supposed to do. And then the second part is a specific purpose where our gifting, you have a gift. Everyone has at least one. And that gifting is that one area in your life where everyone just looks at you and they say, you do that pretty easily. I would have a hard time doing that. And if you keep hearing that and you know it within yourself, that is your gifting. And when you can begin to align with that, then you begin to find more meaning, you begin to find more purpose and fulfillment in all that you do.
I don't know if anybody's ever baked a lasagna in a dishwasher, but it doesn't work. I just want to let you know it just doesn't work because that's not its for. And if you try to wash your dishes on broil, again, it doesn't work, right? And I think I think this is where people often miss it is, what, just like an oven has a specific purpose for what it is, and a dishwasher does, so do you. But then it goes beyond that because I think, right, and I would love to hear you speak to this. Purpose is more than what you do, because we're not human doings, right? We're human beings. So it's bigger than just what am I supposed to. And I think people get this confused. Don't you think so, Randy? That people get, well, what am I supposed to do versus what your purpose is?
Yes. I believe that what happens is we get so focused in on what we're doing and how we're performing that we forget that we were born as human beings, as you stated. And you should be more focused on, what was I made of? What have I been created in that I am able to do when I wake up in the morning? I may not have to do anything, but I can fulfill my purpose by just being who I am. And when we begin to focus in on that, it makes our lives a whole lot easier. It also allows for us to be able to begin to focus on the things that are really internal to us. And I begin to think about all of the external things that we do. Those are things on the outside of us. And I like the focus of, if you begin to think of physical things in your five senses, you begin to think of how you perform in this world. Well, there's so much more to us than just that performance. And when you start to talk about how our spirit is, and that is who we are, then you are then focused on what you were created for, what you've been put here to do. And no longer is it just about doing, but it's about being that, the essence of it. So that when you come into a room, it's the light that's on the inside of you that begins to light up everything else. You're not waiting on anyone else to light you up. You can come in with a smile and you can change the room with your smile, not worried about what everybody else is thinking.
Yeah. And this is where it gets interesting for me in this book, because we go from, okay, we've got people on the road of, we're not human doings, we're human beings. And this is, our purpose is going to fall out of that. But we can't be a human being if we're not living authentically who we are.
Yes. And that's so important. And
right.
I will share on the front of the book, there's a mask, and there's a reason for that. The mask that is there is a mask that it represents also, when I was reading and thinking about the Greeks, when they acted, they would put on a mask. And sometimes what happens in our lives is we end up putting on a mask in different situations. Sometimes you are going into a particular situation and maybe you want to hide that you are emotionally distraught. And so you go into that place and you hide the emotion of how you're feeling at that moment and what's going on in your life. And you put on that smile anyways, but deep down inside, you don't feel good. and you begin to move into different places and you act a different way and you put on different masks depending on who you're around. Sometimes I might be in the corporate world, I put on a particular mask. I'm definitely not going to talk about my emotions in the corporate world. I'm going to do that at home. But if we begin to remove these masks that we sometimes have, and so I'll use mask as a way of us hiding who we really are,
Mhm.
if we can begin to break down those masks in all situations, then you get to show up as the authentic person that you were born to be. That means then, if I am in that corporate situation, I get to be who I was born to be. I'm a natural born teacher, share information. I should be able to do that in the corporate world or at home. And I should be able to do that in a way that is unique to myself. And when I begin to break off all of the emotional masks, sometimes there are physical limitations, sometimes there are mental limitations, or even spiritual limitations in my life, I begin to move to a place where I authentically become really who I was born to be. And guess what happens with that? You have less effort than you would ever have if you were trying to do juggling all of these masks at one time in your life.
You know, Erving Goffman, a great sociologist. I learned about him when I was in graduate school, and he great. Just he wrote what is called the dramaturgical approach, and he said something to the effect like this: we're all actors on a stage, and we wear masks specifically for our audience. And the backstage is really our true self because we don't want people to see that because we're uncomfortable with what's behind the curtains behind us. And I think it's so true. And I'm so glad that you did it this way in this book about the masks because, and folks, I want you to hear what Randy's saying here. I want you to think about the masks that you wear every day. And are you portraying yourself to be different depending on your audience? Or are you able to really be your true self? And even do you even know who that is? And Randy, I think that's the thing about what's happening in today's world is I find fewer and fewer people are comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying there?
And it's difficult because I even talk about this in the book. The first time that I remember being told to really socially acclimate or be and conform was when I was in kindergarten, and I was told to go sit on the line, crisscross applesauce, and that meant I needed to be like everybody else,
Right, right.
and that if I deviated from that, I would be punished or put somewhere else than everyone else. And instead of me being celebrated for whoever uniquely I am,
Right.
I was starting to be told in school to conform. And I believe that that's part of what is ingrained in all of us is that we're trying to conform to whatever the situation is, whatever is around us at a particular time, and we have a fear that if we actually show up authentically as who we are, it would be so different that people would be scared or off put. But in most cases, and I will share with you my personal experiences, that every time I show up as who I am, people are more respectful of it. And they actually look at it and say, I really enjoy your uniqueness and the difference that you have brought to what's going on. But in most cases, I believe, and I've dealt with this myself, is having to deal with that conforming to sometimes social norms that are spoken,
Right.
sometimes things that are not spoken.
Yeah.
And especially the not spoken ones, they're very difficult to navigate in our lives.
Oh my gosh, you are so right. His name is Randy Atkins Jr. The book is entitled "Produce on Purpose: Experience Life Being the Real You." It's really just a great read, just to kind of absorb yourself into and just makes you think. It really does. You're listening to him here on a new direction. Hey, folks, Epic Physical Therapy, whether you're recovering from injury or surgery, they're one of our main sponsors. And you know what? They help people who are suffering from everyday aches and pains. If you're having difficulty performing daily activities, maybe you're a professional athlete. They work with professional athletes too, and athletes of all sorts. Listen, you know what? They'll provide a customized treatment plan just for you. So we're ready for epic relief, epic recovery. Don't look any further. Go to epicpt.com. It's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft Team Realtors for more than 39 years, actually going on their 40th year. She is. You know what? They've helped people all over the world transition in life. And you say, how do they do that? Well, think about it. Every place you've ever lived, has it not been a life transition? Sure it has. Something in your life has changed and it's been significant. So they know how to take the stress out of that part of that life transition. And that's the housing part. And they've been doing it successfully for thousands of people for nearly 40 years. So you know what? When you're ready to transition, your next transition, whether that's buy or sell, check out Linda Craft Team Realtors. It's lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with Randy Atkins Jr., books produced on purpose. We're having a great conversation talking about purpose and authenticity. And, you know, we're on authenticity because I think it's going to be hard for us, Randy, and I think you'll agree with this. I think it's hard for us to talk about what our purpose is without really taking a deeper dive into authenticity. And I think one of the things about authenticity, and you know, before the break, you said, you know, you remember as a child, you know, being told, you know, you got to fall in line, you got to do things this way, right, or you're not going to be successful. And I remember that too, because you know, I'm a little older than you are. Maybe a lot, I don't know. And and I remember, you know, conformity was really important. And it really did, and it still is to a large extent. If you don't conform, right, you looked at an outcast. It still happens in society today. But I think there's an other side to this where people also have it wrong. Being authentic doesn't mean being a mean curmudgeon. do you know what I mean?
No.
Right. I mean, some people think like, yeah, I'm exactly who I am. Well, you're just a really horrible human being in terms of how you act and treat people. You know, because you're always mean, you're always nasty, and that's not who we are either. I know it makes people. It's easier for people to feel like they're being themselves when they're angry, but that's not who they are. So let's talk about this balance of authenticity, because I think we kind of go this whole, because right, you've heard people go, I'm completely comfortable in my own skin. I don't like anybody, but I'm comfortable in my own skin. And then you got people who don't know for sure who they really are. Help us balance that out, because that can't be us either.
Yeah, I believe that one of the important things that we must remember is that as we are living in this world, we have to relate to others. In fact, as we were all created and we're all put here, it's to relate with, whether it's the trees outside, but it's also to relate to each other. And the greater ability we have to relate to each other, the better off we will become. And so your authenticity and who you are, portion of that has to be with how well do you relate to others. In fact, I think that one of the things to think about is, if you are having difficulties relating to others and you're being authentic, maybe we should try a different approach. Sometimes our approaches and the skill sets that we end up learning, that we can still be authentic to who we are without having to mess up all of our relationships, every person we run into, that we can have relationships that make sense, that allow us to celebrate our uniqueness. And I'll encourage everyone to also think about, who are you surrounded by? Because who you are surrounded by may be the reason why you stick out the way that you do, and maybe the way you feel the way that you do. And sometimes we may have to change all of those that are around us and have people who are celebrating that uniqueness. And I believe when we do that and we approach the world in a way that we're going to relate, that you can live authentically and you can have that balance to where you are not just saying, I'm living authentically, but nobody understands me. There's somebody that
Right,
understands you.
right,
It
right.
just may be that the circle that you have around you at this moment may not understand everything about who you are.
So true. And I think there's another thing about authenticity that as you're speaking, and you mentioned this in the book too, that the two things that inhibit us from being authentic. First one is ourselves, right?
Yes.
But let's take a deep dive into that. Because sometimes our past hurts and pains keep us from being authentically who we are because we're so hurt.
Yes. Those past hurts and pains. What's interesting is for each of us is we can put together memories, patterns, situations that occur when it comes to our emotions. Every time you feel a particular emotion, if a particular memory comes up and triggers something, you are holding on to something that may actually be stopping you from moving forward in what you need to do. And so, my encouragement, this is where we start to talk about some of the different techniques in our lives, whether it's prayer, meditation, whatever you can do. Jay talked about it at the beginning about centering ourselves. Maybe you go out in nature, whatever it is to get you back to a centered place, because those past traumas or past issues, past patterns that you have, the easiest way to get to authentically who you are and to remove that barrier is to begin to let go, to forgive,
Mm.
to surrender. And when you move in that direction, things really do begin to change in your life, because you are no longer, I would say, I'm a programmer on the corporate side. I would say you're no longer working off of a old program, but you can now reboot yourself and
Right.
begin to work off of something that is different, that will allow you to move forward and let go of those old programs from continuing to come up and be barriers in your life.
You hit a word that I think is so critical. We don't like talking about it in professional circles, but it's really, really true. That it's a must. We have to talk about it, and especially as it relates to our past. And it's the word forgiveness, right? I mean, we are all going to do things that we are not happy about what we've done in our past. All right. And there's
Yes.
going to be things that happen to us that hurt us, that have altered our path in one way or another.
Yes.
But forgiveness seems to be the one commonality between those two things, meaning that if I want to get past my past, I have to forgive myself for my past. And if I want to get past the past of hurts that others have done to me, I have to forgive those too.
Yes.
So
And it,
let's talk about the power of forgiveness, because I think it's really important that people understand it in order to be their authentic self, to get past their past. And I have no other better way to say that, but
and forgiveness is at the center of us becoming free.
mm,
Many that I've talked to say they want to be free. And when they talk about freedom, they are saying that they want to be in a space in life where they don't feel like they're controlled by the external situations of their lives. And forgiveness stands at the center of both us forgiving ourselves for mistakes that we made in our lives. We are all going to make mistakes. In fact, my father told me when I was younger, he said, no matter what you do, you are going to make mistakes.
mhm,
But what you must do is, if you make a mistake, learn from that mistake.
mhm,
And one of the things with forgiveness that we can do is, when we make a mistake, or we may have hurt somebody, or we know we didn't do the things that made us feel good, we can begin first to forgive ourselves of those things that we've had in our lives. And I say it's the process of just letting it go, and you feel whatever you need to feel about the situation, but no longer are you going to rehash that over and over and over again in your mind, but you're going to let it go. And then additionally, you've done something to other people in relationships, and there's been hurts that you have done, but then there's things that people have done to you, or organizations that have done to you, and it hurts. But are you going to stay and remain angry about that hurt? Or are you going to move beyond that now and understand that that is something from the past? You are moving forward, because one thing I have found is that if we don't forgive, I could be holding on to something that is nasty, it's rotten, and the organization has gone on. My ex has gone on. The family, whoever I've been mad at, has gone on, and I'm still holding on to this rotten thing. And if we just let go of that rotten thing, do you know your life will be just so much better? And so that's what forgiveness will do for us. And when we forgive, that means that I'm going to think right now, it's not something about how you feel, it is a choice. You get to forgive as a choice in your life, and you can do it right now. You don't have to wait on anybody. You don't have to wait for somebody to tell you to do it. You can do it right now.
My wife, who I believe is perhaps the smartest human being on the planet, with the exception, she made one error. She had a weak moment when she married me. But I'm pretty sure she's the smartest person on the planet. And she taught me this phrase about forgiving other people. And I've never forgotten it. She said, you know what? Not forgiving someone is like drinking the poison and hoping that person will die.
Yes.
And I've never forgotten it because it's such a great visual. Such a great visual. And I think oftentimes, because I'm on social media, I'm active on social media. You and I have talked on social media together. And you know, what I find is there's a lot of people out there who say, I don't trust anybody anymore. Well, there's no possible way you can be living authentically yourself without trust.
Yes.
And that forgiveness.
Yes.
And I think that's the piece that's missing for many people is there cannot be any authenticity if you're holding on to bitterness. Can there?
There cannot be any authenticity if you are holding on to bitterness. And you said bitterness, but a lot of times people feel like bitterness is usually the further away you've gone, and you don't even know why you're angry anymore. You don't even know why you feel the way you feel anymore, and so you've been holding on to this, and you don't even know why anymore. It might have started with somebody. It might have started with a situation. And you cannot authentically be you because it's almost as if you have a filter on everything that you see. Have you ever met somebody that's always negative? They
Oh, gosh.
always, every time you talk to them, it's like the negative side. And you're like, but there's more. I'm looking outside and the wind is blowing. Oh man, the last time the wind blew, my house fell. So it's hilarious because
Yeah,
the
it is.
filter we can have is because we're holding on to something that is not truly allowing us to remove that filter in our lives. And so if you can get rid of that filter, then you can authentically be who you are, and you can begin to trust again. And trust, what does trust mean? Trust means that I'm going to take a step forward with a relationship. I'm going to take a step forward with a new opportunity that I say it's going to work out for good, not so much that it's going to be something that is horrible and because I'm basing it on something in my past. But if you let go of that past and you let go of that last situation, you can now be present in this moment, and I can see Jay for who Jay is. I'm not saying Jay is the Jay that I met 3 years ago and he did something to me. No, it's the Jay that I know now. And when I'm able to do that, I'm able to show up authentically. I'm able to look at situations without that filter. And you don't have to have that glass or that green film. Sometimes it's the green film of jealousy that you've got on yourself. Take it off, and you can then be more authentic with who you are, how you approach things, and be in this present moment, not based on the past. And you also are not looking so forward to the future, because the past will give you depression. The future will give you anxiety. And if you can start to move into a place where you center yourself and start to be present, you become more authentic to who you are. And I am excited about where all of you who are listening will start to go when you begin to let go of any of those filters: bitterness, envy, strife, whatever those things are. Let them go.
Yeah, life is better And can I just say something else just to add on to everything Randy's saying here? The people that you're mad at, I'm just going to tell you that 95% of them don't even know that you're mad at them.
Yeah.
They really don't. They don't really know. Most of them don't even realize they did something to you. And if they do realize it, either they don't care and they've moved on and they still own you because they own you emotionally. Right.
Wow.
And nobody should be owned. So they've moved on, but you stayed right there because you're so angry and mad.
Oh, wow. And think about it. You thought you were holding on to something, but you've given them your power. Wow.
Right. Right. I mean, no, I mean, it's kind of like you're going, I've just given you all the power and you don't even care. You've moved on with your life. I can't move on because I'm still mad at you. Meanwhile, you've moved on.
Right.
And they still own you.
Oh, wow. I don't want to be owned.
No. No.
I want to be free.
I do too.
So,
I'm right with you, brother. I'm right with you. I'm right with you on this. This brings me to another point of the actor that you talk about in authenticity. And you and I had a brief discussion about this before the show. And that was how social media creates masks.
Yes.
For us, right? Because you and I joked around, before we know people who start posting stuff on social media and we go, bro, that ain't you. That's not you, man. Come on, man. That's not you. But it does do, right? There is something called, by the way, there's something called online disinhibition effect by Dr. Suler. He wrote it several years ago. And how what we'll do is we tend to put on these masks because we want people to see what we want them to see, especially on social media. How do we handle authenticity in a social media world?
It is important for us to understand that, number one, we don't have to put on masks to be liked or to get responses or engagement. But really, truly, the best way to really get engagement, to really have authentically who your audience is to be authentic to yourself. I understand, because some of the things I think people are doing on social media, it's more about numbers. It's about having a particular look, a particular feel. But when we meet you in person, that is not who you are. The picture that you took, you weren't even there. You photoshopped yourself on there. Well, then that's not authentically who you really are. But if you begin to put out who you are in your life, then you are able to share that with an audience of people. Because I will say this, that when you are on social media and someone's looking at your post, they can tell whether or not it's true or real or not. It's just like my dog at home. He knows if I'm being real with him or I'm being fake. And so when we see these posts, I already know whether or not you are being true about what you're saying. And I believe that when we look at the causes that we have or the purposes that we have, and we truly share that on social media, we share it in our posts, on the pictures that we share, maybe you're sharing in a cause that you really believe in, that those are going to hit your audience and hit the people that are around you in a greater way and help their lives in a greater way. And no longer would you be chasing after something. I will get into this, is that we don't have to chase anything. In fact, if we are who we are and we are authentically who we are, do you know that everything that needs to be like you will come towards you, will be attracted to you? And so you don't have to chase after anything. And I believe that sometimes in the world today that many people are just chasing when you should be attracting.
It's beautiful. His name is Randy Atkins Jr. The book, Produce on Purpose, Experience Life Being the Real You. See the mask? Yeah, take it off. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, Epic Physical Therapy, my physical therapist. I think they should be yours too, by the way. Listen, they offer the most advanced top-of-the-line equipment like the Ultra G anti-gravity treadmill, the Normatec compression sleeves, the Game Ready, my favorite. That's just a few. The trained and certified, the most comprehensive, cutting-edge treatments available. Things like blood flow restriction therapy, dry needling, cupping, and that's just a few. So listen, when you want epic relief, epic recovery, epic results, don't look any further. Go to epicpt.com. It's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft Team Realtors, I'll tell you something. You need to go to lindacraft.com. LINDACRAFT. Let me tell you why. It is perhaps the most comprehensive real estate site that you will ever see. I mean, it is completely comprehensive. You want to see listings? They got them. You want to see the MLS? They got it. You want to join the team? They got it. You want to find out what's going on in the area? They got it. You want more information? They got it. Need a referral? They got it. You want to find a professional in the area? They got it. It is so comprehensive and so easy to navigate. I'm just encouraging you, just check out lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. You are going to be so glad that you did. Tell them that you heard about her on A New Direction. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend, Randy Atkins Jr. I get to call him friend because whether he wants to be my friend or not, he's my friend. So there it is.
I don't mind being your friend, Jay.
I could use all I could get, Randy. So I'm glad that you're willing. Glad that you're willing to do that. Steps to becoming a producer, because we talk about producing on purpose, and you talk about steps of being a producer. One of the things is we talked about, we got to find a purpose, and finding a purpose is, there's a lot of stuff out there on finding purpose, by the way, and you talk about this too. There's a lot of things, but you talk about how if we're an actor on a stage, it means somebody else is directing us, and we can't be producing on purpose if we're somebody else is being the director.
Yes.
We have to be our director. So what I'm going to ask you to do here, if you don't mind, for the next few minutes, is I'm going to ask you to talk about steps to becoming a producer. You talk about recognizing you're already a producer, recognize your uniqueness, embrace the things that make you different, celebrate your contributions, and share who you are with the world. You spend some time talking about that for a few minutes?
Yeah, definitely. I talk about in the book about being a producer and not just an actor. And as we talked about earlier, removing those masks allow you to understand that I'm no longer going to be the actor or actress, because the actor and actress are working on somebody else's script. And so why do you want to be a producer? You say, maybe I'll be the director. The director has some more creative freedoms. No, the director also works for the producer. And I would encourage everyone to be a producer of their own lives. And when you are a producer of your own life, what happens is you, number one, get to connect with being the one that comes up with whatever the script is. You're going to get the resources together to make sure that you are ready to produce this movie that is called your life. And as you're producing this, you're going to bring in all of the resources that are needed to make sure that you are going to be able to produce everything that is in your life. You're going to bring in the people that you need. You're going to bring in the money that you need. You're going to bring in all the resources that can fit within to create this thing called your life, which is a series of many movies. And as I talk about in the book, that the seasons of our lives, they change. And so you can create a new mini movie as your producer. So as a producer, number one, what you want to do is you want to connect within what is the purpose and who you are and what are you supposed to be doing. What kind of movie are you going to have for your life? How are you going to affect people? How are you going to change and transform lives in your movie, that when you come in contact with them, that you're engaging in them? Number two, you're going to make sure that as yourself and who you are, that you're going to make sure that you, as the producer, understand what the vision is that you're supposed to be putting on. Everyone may not understand what this movie, your life, looks like, but it's your job to communicate that to everyone and bring them in so that you can produce this movie that will affect and change all of those that are around you. And as you're doing that, and as you are becoming who you are supposed to be, that you are moving in a direction where that movie will become more to others, because you got to move through a process. And so as you're making that movie, and as you are working with others, and as others are understanding who you are and what you're about, that you're going to share with them, here's how I can help you and serve you. So part of this as a producer is, how can I serve all of those that are around me? How can I make sure that they are a part of what I'm doing? And when we look at service and versus just use, and I can go into that pretty far, but sometimes we look at things to where we can just use it. But the idea as a producer is, I want to serve whatever I'm doing, that it is reciprocated, that whatever I'm doing, I'm going to serve, and that reciprocation will happen in my life. I'm not just going to use something for its temporary value. It's not just going to be transactional, but what I want to do is I want to make a relationship that will last. And as you're moving forward as a producer, you want to then make sure that you are touching all of those that are around you in that way. Altruism becomes a big deal. That means that you are going to lead, and you're going to make sure that through your service, you're going to touch those that are around you. And as your movie is being made, it's not just about you. It's bigger than you. And as you are doing that as a producer, you're producing more fruit into this world, the fruit that is beautiful, that will help others to continue to live this life in a greater way. And so I encourage you to take a look at that, do that, move forward in that. And as you are doing that and you're going down that path, every day may not be the most beautiful day, but you will be able to start to allow for your movie to change this world in a greater way.
I would love to close on that, but we have more time because that was so good. I can just listen to him all day. Okay, so the thing here, is that we want to produce, but we've already talked that we can't probably produce without authenticity. Not produce to the extent that we want to produce. Correct? We have
that
to be
is correct,
right? We have to be authentic.
Yep.
And there has to be a purpose here, right? Yep. And I think one of the things, Randy, that when we try to connect, when we try to figure out how do we, people go, well, I don't know how to find my purpose, right? Well, you kind of alluded to it a little bit. And I think we can, here in the next few minutes, we'll try to help them a little bit. Yeah. One of the things that you talked about is that I use this 3A model: affinity, aptitude, and affirmation. Meaning, what do you are naturally inclined and interested in, and that kind of turns you on. Mm-hmm. What are you actually good at? That's your aptitude. Mm-hmm. And then, what do people tell you you're good at? Right. That's the affirmation piece. Right.
Yes.
Because whatever your purpose is, it's going to fill those three circles. It's going to be in the heart of those three circles, right? And it's not that you're doing, but it's what your life is about. Yes. I think that's the best way to phrase that, right? What is your life about? You have some. By the way, I should tell you about this in this book. At the end of each chapter, he's got these questions. Yes. That he asks. And by the way, good questions. That he asks in the back of this book. And I will just tell you that these questions are going to make you think.
Yes.
I'm about to disguise it. These are deep questions that make you think. But when we talk about purpose, and it's so hard because people go, well, it's what I do. Well, it's what you do is an extension of what your purpose is. This is
Yes.
where you and I are coming from on this.
Mhm.
And like for me, my purpose is to help people find a new direction in their
Yeah.
life, their business, their career. And that is my purpose in this world. And by the way, I do that in a variety of different ways. I speak, I
Mhm.
coach, I do this show, I write books.
Right.
All right. Being an author, being a podcaster, being a host, being a speaker, those are things I do that come out of my purpose of helping people find a new direction in their life, their business, and career.
Yes.
Right. So I think people, it's a hard thing for them to wrap their mind around. Okay, it's something that's meaningful to you, but that makes a positive impact on the world. My purpose isn't podcasting.
Yes.
My purpose isn't speaking. My purpose isn't writing books. Right. It's bigger
Correct.
than that.
Yes.
And I think people have a difficult time figuring that out. Give them some ideas of what they can do.
One of the things to really think about is I talk about this in the book a little bit about having an intentional aim.
Mm,
And when we have an intentional aim in life, the expressions, and so Jay, I like how you explained it, and I do the same thing, right? There are different expressions of this intentional aim that I have in my life of helping to transform lives and helping
mhm,
to move people in have spiritual growth in their lives. But the expressions of that could be speaking, could be a podcast, could be sharing information with somebody through other means. And so when we look at our purpose, it becomes an intentional aim. And what does intentionality have to do with it? Well, we could just walk around this world every day without any intention. So you wake up in the morning and whatever happens, happens. And I have had days like that, and I have been horrible in those days because I feel like everything around me is just doing whatever it wants to do, and I'm just playing around with whatever happens. And it's almost like I'm being pushed around all throughout the day. And I could be like a boat in the water. I've taken cruises and different things, and the waves start beating me around, and that's how it feels in life. But when we have an intentional aim, I feel like I have the rudder behind me, I have a motor behind me, and even though I might be in this large ocean, I have a direction. And with that direction, I am able to use that to express who I am in multiple ways. Ways to find that in our lives. One area I encourage everyone to do is journaling. What
mm,
does journaling do? Journaling allows for us to take something that many times is abstract, and I want you to actually write it down. Don't just use your phone or anything. Actually get pen and paper, write down in your journal information about whether it's that day. I like to say that you should start off the day with intentionality and say, there are three things I want to accomplish today. What are those three big rocks or three things that I want to do? And in your journal, you want to, at the end of the day, you want to write down three items which went really well, three items that did not go well, and write down how you felt about them. And then write down all of your wins. When you write down those wins, what you will begin to see as you begin to reflect on that journal is that your life, you've been growing every day. There are things that have been changing and have been going along the way, even though you might not have felt it or seen it in a particular way. But with the intentional aims that you do in the morning, I want you to reflect on those and see how every time, over time, those intentional aims will actually be accomplished without a whole lot of effort on your part. And when you start doing that with journaling, I want you to also marry that with the ability to pray or meditate. And I'll say prayer and meditation, I give them two different things. Prayer is when you're just speaking and you're saying, here's my petition, here's what I'm asking for. The meditation is when you are listening and you're listening to hear What is it that I am supposed to hear? What am I supposed to understand at this moment? And you are listening in meditation for revelation. It's not so much about what you need to do next, but for revelation to be revealed about who you are and the purpose that you're here for. And there will be other expressions of how you are to push that purpose out and what you're supposed to do. So when you do those three things, and I like to give those tangible items to everyone, is that when you do that, it begins to put you down the road so that you uniquely are able to push out those purposes that you have, and you will discover that your purpose may actually begin to morph as time goes on and as you begin to express in new and different ways.
Well, I was going to ask you what's your new direction, but there it is right there. And that was it right there. We've done our hour, man. It's been fun. I've enjoyed this. Tell people how they can get a hold of you.
You can reach me at randyatkinsjr.com, randyatkinsjr.com, and there you will find information about Produce on Purpose. It is in paperback, ebook, and Audible for those who like to listen to books on there while they're doing exercise or whatever. And you can listen to my podcast. I have a podcast as well, Produce on Purpose. There you can get more information about how to live your life in an authentic way, being the real you. And I have sermons, other interviews on my website. All my social media links are at the top of my website. So connect with me there. I love to hear feedback. I love to get information. And just for this podcast, I will give a 25% discount on a signed copy of my book if you put in the coupon code New Direction.
All right. You know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put that on the blog post that goes with the show. Right. And it's New Direction. We'll put New Direction.
New Direction.
That's going to be your code, New Direction. You can get 25% off. Produce on Purpose.
Yep.
So, okay. All right, Randy, Randy said it. So we're going to do it because that's the way it goes. So we're going to do that. So we're going to put that in the blog post as well. Randy, stay with me. Folks, this is a show. You know what I say to you every week, right? You know what? You had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you. You know, we're in control of three things in our life: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. Life is going to come at us hard and in different ways. And sometimes things will feel like they're not good. You know what? You still can maintain a positive attitude because that's your choice. It's not easy, but it is your choice. Your effort is tied to your excellence. Fact of the matter is, how excellent do you want to be today is going to be dependent on how you choose your effort. And we all get punched in the gut or punched in the teeth now and then. It's up to you to get back up. Will you get back up today? I believe you will. We'll be back next week with another great guest. It's going to be another great book. It's going to be another great show. It has to be when those two things happen together. As I say to you all over the world, you know what that is. Ciao, everybody.